All right. Welcome to The Way It Should Be. I'm JD.
I'm Dean.
And today we have Rectenwald, Michael Rectenwald. Did I say that? Did I say your last name right?
Yeah, that's correct. Rectenwald,
Rectenwald.
just like it looks.
So
Yeah.
running for the Libertarian nomination for president. Got it. Good deal.
Yes, sir.
So I guess the first things first of all, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being on here. I know you're a busy man with everything going on. I could not imagine what your schedule is probably like with everything going on.
Yeah.
So I guess first thing we kind of thought is maybe get kind of a little bit who you are, how you came to this position, how everything's, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I was a professor at NYU. I'm a Marxist who turned libertarian. I became a libertarian after the woke mob tried to cancel me at NYU. This became national news, and I got catapulted into a whole new register. I started to write books, essays, and give talks, all from a libertarian perspective, on topics like the Great Reset, corporate socialism, and the globalist technocratic tyranny. So I've been a guest many times on such shows as Glenn Beck, Judge Napolitano, the Epoch Times thought leaders, Tucker Carlson, and a whole host of other places. And so I came out against the woke mob in 2016, and they came after me with a vengeance. I was really just criticizing some things about what was going on in the university, NYU and elsewhere across the country. You know, the wokeness and the canceling speakers, the safe spaces, the bias reporting hotlines, and what have you. And they came after me hard, and they forced my hand. I took a coerced leave of absence, and then I came back and was assaulted by these woke professors for months, and being made a pariah on campus. And I started to wake up. I instantly became a civil libertarian. That is, I'm stressing the utter importance of individual rights, including the right of free speech, and the right of self-determination. And then I delved into economic theory and became an economic libertarian. And I can talk about what all that means.
Yeah, that's wild. That my question is, how did we get to this point with the woke culture in universities? Because it used to be like the left was the big advocate for free speech and everything, and now they're the biggest opponents to it.
Well, that's always been the case where leftists are concerned, like in the Soviet Union, or before the Soviet Union was formed, as the Bolsheviks were rising, they were arguing for free speech. But once they got the levers of power, they shut down the speech of everybody at the point of a gun. And that's exactly how leftists operate. It's a totalitarian ideology at base. Wokeness is totalitarian. I've been saying that for years. It attempts to destroy the rights of those it claims do not deserve them, people that oppose their views or have other views altogether. So there's how it came about is, through a takeover of the institutions by a leftist, a slow creep that build up like in a dam and then finally burst. And so they undertook what's called the Long March through the institutions. This was a concept coined by a German socialist student named Rudi Dutschke, and picked up by the left all over the world. And there's been a real infiltration. And also there was the tax-exempt so-called philanthropies, foundations, that took all the money from these uber capitalists that left them legacies and turned them to socialist ends. And they influenced the educational institutions by setting up different associations like the Association of American Professors and all kinds of things, All of these things were undertaken to push a collectivist ideology on the public. And this started really in the 20s, if not earlier, in the progressive era.
Yeah.
But there was a slow entrenchment that they got, and they finally took over completely. There's a long history there, but that's a short story of it.
So, was the what brought you to the Libertarian Party? I guess was it the fact when they kind of came after you, or had you already been working that way?
Well, I became a libertarian with a small L right away, not part of the Libertarian Party. I became a part of the Libertarian Party when I was asked by the Mises Caucus leader. This is a caucus that took over the party for the most part, a conservative caucus that took over the Libertarian Party to try to restore it to the Ron Paul principles, effectively, and to give it, to fight against the wokeness and the whole regime of, anti-free speech and oppression and all that by the left. So they took over the party. They asked me to run.
Okay.
I didn't even have this design. I never thought of seeking political office in my life. Primarily I'm an author and public speaker, and but they encouraged me strongly, and they also laid out a vision which I agree with, and therefore I took the offer up and took on the mantle of a Libertarian Party candidate for president.
Okay.
And you had a lot of association with like you've worked at the Mises Institute for a long time, right?
Yes, I've written for the Mises Institute, worked for the Mises, and given many speeches for the Mises Institute over the last 7 years. I've been on hundreds of podcasts from libertarian perspectives and conservative perspectives. I mean, from conservative podcasts. I've been on, all these shows. So they thought I would be able to deliver the libertarian message well beyond the enclave of the Libertarian Party per se.
Yeah. Well, you definitely can do that for sure.
So, what do you? There's so many candidates right now for the Libertarian. What do you feel kind of sets you apart from those other candidates?
Well, I'm not a politician, and that's the big difference. I'm not telling people, giving false promises, saying that we'll get over 5% or 5% of the vote. I'm leading a movement more than a campaign. This movement is for Project Decentralization, Project Decentralized Revolution. That is vesting power in the people at the local level and wresting it away from the central government. That means taking control of local government, taking control of the town hall, the sheriff's office, the police department, the school boards, and the whole 9 yards of local leadership, and establishing these local enclaves that resist the power of the centralized state, and eventually create, effectively, in the end, a totally private property society if we're lucky. If we're lucky and if we do the work. And that means no state at all. I am an anarcho-capitalist. And that means free market, no state. That's the ultimate objective, but we know that can't happen overnight. There's not going to be there'll be a gradual approach to this. And I'm the only one telling the truth about this, that the Libertarian Party is not going to make some sort of a major change in this political scenario that we're in under the current circumstances as kind of like a white knight riding into town, and undertaking all these things that libertarians want to undertake, like ending the Fed, ending the CIA, ending the FBI, overturning, a lot of like legal tender law, things like that. These things are objectives, but they can't be done by some singular person doing this. This has to be done by the people as a whole. And so what we're encouraging is people to get involved in local government. Whether you're a libertarian or a Republican, it doesn't matter. As long as you're, I would suppose, as long as you're not a Democrat, because if you're a Democrat, you love central power, central government, and you love globalism. And I oppose all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's always been my take is we've got to, the only way we're going to make changes is we can't do these big sweeping things like you talk about. We're not going to end the Fed tomorrow. That's just not going to happen. That's not realistic.
Right.
It's not it's the end goal, but it's not realistic for tomorrow. But what is realistic is, taking over a school board or the sheriff's department or, just a city government, making small changes there and building out, getting people. One of the things I think you might agree with this, we got to get society in general used to the idea of freedom because they're not used to it. They
don't even know what to do
exactly.
with it. A lot of people are either afraid of it or really don't know what it is because they haven't really experienced it or even aspired to it. So freedom is something that they got to get a handle on. And that means they got to understand that they should have rights over their own bodies and their own minds, their own speech, their own commercial activities. They shouldn't be monitored by the Federal Reserve with CBDCs, and they shouldn't be overseen by the World Economic Forum and the UN with Agenda 2030 and the Great Reset. They shouldn't have their rights to buy what they want taken from them by these globalist organizations as their policies are adopted by the state, and that's what's happening right now. We need to overturn that. We need to do it by building out communities from the local level, and you're right, then it expands.
Yeah.
But I will say, in terms of the Fed, what we need is parallel currencies in place that we can use in place of the dollar, which is rapidly losing value every day, thanks to their unfettered printing and spending. This has to be stopped, and it can only be eroded from the bottom up at this point. We can't go in and just get rid of the Fed overnight. This has to happen where you weaken its power by undermining its monopoly over money.
Yeah, that's kind of what the idea behind Bitcoin was, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Bitcoin is one, and then there's Monero, and of course gold and silver. And I'm not going to be the one to say, oh, you must use this or that, or you must use a cryptocurrency and not gold. I'm not going to try to arbitrate that decision. That's up to the people at the local level and their networks, their communities, what these people want to use for their currency. And it should be legal tender. There should be competitive bankings with private currencies in a competition in the market like every other product. Because money is just another product. It just happens to be the one that mediates every exchange.
Yeah, it's just the most sellable commodity in the market.
Yes, that's all it is.
Yeah. So what I mean, you talked about what are the central bank digital currencies?
Right.
Those are, I've been reading up on those. I'm probably not as knowledgeable as you are, but just looking at them on the face of it, you can see how dangerous this concept is. That the central bank will issue digital currencies, and I know they claim they don't want to remove paper currency or hard money out of the system, but at the end of the day, that's what their goal is, right?
I think so. I think at the end of the day, their goal is total control. Because the CBDC would be transparent, all your transactions would be transparent to the Fed.
Yeah.
And this means, since the Fed is this quasi-governmental agency, although a private bank, it would be transparent to the federal government. And they could have policies in place such that they forbid certain types of purchases and sales. Like, you've reached your quota of gasoline for the week or month. You cannot have any more gasoline. You can't drive your car anymore. You can't eat any meat. You can't buy any guns. All of these things that they would possibly forbid. And then they could close, they could lock some people out of the economy altogether. That is, if they don't have in place an alternate system. That's why I'm encouraging everybody to get involved in getting involved in a network that accepts an alternate currency.
So, switching topics here real fast, are you yourself? Both Dean and I here are pretty big gun guys. I mean, no shocker there on a Libertarian podcast. But are you yourself? Do you shoot? Is that something you enjoy?
Yes, I'm a pretty trained, in weapons use, and but I don't usually shoot regularly. I only shoot when I'm being shot at, or being violated in such a way as to threaten my life. Then you will be dead.
Yeah.
Not you personally, but whoever it is, the assailant.
Gotcha.
Right. I think that we get rid of the police and have everybody be armed.
Yeah.
This would be the best way for us to have self-protection, because libertarians talk about over-policing, but today that's not really the problem. The problem is what's called anarcho-tyranny, and that is this. They're letting criminals run rampant and terrorize us while they clamp down on our right to own guns.
Yeah.
And similarly, they put you in jail if you self-protect.
Yeah, I mean, and like the solution to over policing, like you said, is arming everybody, but also getting rid of the central authority, like the monopolistic power that is the police department, where if you want police protection, you go out and you sign up with the agency you feel is going to be the best for that service.
Absolutely. Or just do it on your own if you can't afford it. Private protection is really where it should be.
Yeah, and you would actually end up having more security in the world. That'd be more responsive to their customers.
Yeah, just think about that. If people were armed, imagine things that are going on today around the world would not be happening to people.
Yeah.
They would be able to resist it. They would never have this stuff going on in the first place.
Well, yeah, we kind of talked about that yesterday. It just even with the gun laws the way they are in some states. I mean Texas, obviously we can't fully automatics in the stuff that's federal legal, but we have as far as where it is right now, our gun laws are lax compared to other states, I should say. Not where I would like to see it, but just even in those other states, it creates a whole nother element for, not to get in on the whole Israel thing, but if Hamas, as that was happening, if that other aspect, if a armed population would have been had, it adds a whole nother.
They would have been able to resist it.
Yeah. Adds a whole nother level of planning for something like that has to be done. I just can't understand why a country can't see that myself.
Well, it's because they don't want their people to be armed, because then you can resist the government.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, that's right. And, Israel's they're no angel either.
They're not.
So I won't get into that too much, but yeah, I mean, they gave their population the most COVID shots of any country on the planet. Mm-hmm. They forced them on these people. Yeah. 4 and 5 shots.
Oh, they were like a petri dish for testing. They used what was going on in Israel as a test bed for everything else.
Oh. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, yeah, man. I mean, look, I'm just trying to get the message of liberty out there to people, and I don't care what party you're in. Although I would like you to leave the Republican Party and become a delegate for me in the Libertarian Party. But in terms of this localism or decentralization project, it doesn't matter. The key is that you have the right principles if they're libertarian at heart, and that means with a small L really there. And that is, you really want individual rights, including the amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all those, of course, first and second itself. Those are primary. Without those, without the Second Amendment, you don't have a First Amendment.
Yeah. Without the Second Amendment, you don't have a Constitution.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So I'm all for that, and I'm trying to get this message out as broadly as I can. I'm just one person, but I'm leading a movement at this juncture.
What do you see as the role for the LP, for the candidate, whoever gets it, when that it's a tall order, like Dean had said before. It's a tall order to say we're going to win. So what is your vision for if you were to get it for your candidacy?
The nominee's role is to be a messenger, an educator, and a person that can deliver the liberty message to the broadest possible audience. And that's what I think I'm totally well positioned for that, since my name is by far the most recognizable outside of libertarian circles.
Yeah.
That is Libertarian Party circles. Like I've got people coming on to endorse me that are not really part of the party, but they are big members of what we call the Liberty Movement, like Judge Napolitano and Jeff Deist, who was the president of the Mises Institute for over 10 years, and people like this and several other Mises Institute people that aren't necessarily libertarians in the party, but they're libertarians in spirit, and that's most important. It's more important that you're a libertarian in spirit than in a party.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on, I mean, we hear a lot right now, national divorce, and then you have the Texit movement down here.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. Secession and decentralization go hand in hand. Now, decentralization can happen without secession per se.
Yeah.
But secession is decentralization. It's as one of the theorists in the libertarian canon of thought said, basically we want 1,000 Liechtensteins rather than one big state. The smaller the state, the better, because then you have choices. So globalism is the ultimate nightmare.
Yep.
Where you have no outside of the system. There's nowhere you can go to escape. And when they have a global state, let's just start from there, you have intensification of taxation, oppression, control, because people have no alternative. So the more alternatives people have, the better. That's why it's smaller and smaller is better and better.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's also the responsiveness. Like, I'm never going to run into the president of the United States and be able to talk to him, but I could possibly run into the mayor of my town in Walmart. I give him
absolutely.
Yeah. So the smaller the government gets, the more access you have to it, and it can.
That's correct.
They can listen to what you have
and
to say.
And then eventually, from my standpoint, total private property society is the ultimate goal.
For sure.
And that is to say, everybody, this would solve the so-called immigration. Well, there is an immigration problem. Basically, under a private property society, anybody would be, the borders would be your property line, right?
Yeah.
So nobody can come on your property unless they're invited to.
Yeah.
So that's the principle that should obtain regarding immigration altogether. If you're not invited, you don't belong here. Now, we have so-called public property, which the state believes is theirs, the nation state. But really, that's the people's property. So the people should decide whether the people can come into this country, not the state.
Yeah. We're seeing that more and more right now with, I don't know how up to date you are on it, Dean, but more and more closing of the Bureau of Land Management land. Here recently, I can't remember how many exactly, but there were several areas in the Utah, several kind of National Forest Bureau of Land Management areas that were closed to public use. This is supposedly public land that we can use, and yet it's being completely shut off.
What was their excuse for shutting it down?
I'm not totally versed in it, but it's been happening more and more. I'm not sure if you've kept up with that or if you've seen that, but there are more and more places.
Yeah, and that's. Well, they're going to try to make more of these reserves. What they're going to do and what they're already doing in other places, but even in the U.S. to some extent, they want to increase the so-called wildlands or wildlife refuges, and get rid of farming and get rid of cultivated land so that they can reduce the so-called greenhouse gases nonsense. Excuse me, I almost swore there.
Oh,
you can
swear.
Okay, the greenhouse gases bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe in that shit at all. It's total nonsense. Yeah. It's a complete lie. And, they're calling carbon dioxide a pollutant. That's exactly what's necessary for plant life to live.
Exactly.
It's not a pollutant. It's actually an essential compound for organic life.
Yeah.
These people are insane.
I mean, that's the reason why the dinosaurs were so big back in the day. Plants were big.
Yeah.
Everything was bigger because there was more carbon for plants to grow.
Right. So, and carbon dioxide does not cause climate change or global warming, whatever they want to call it now.
Yeah.
It just does not heat up the environment. That's just not true. I've read, and I've worked with a gas physicist that has proven this is not real. It doesn't retain heat.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never really looked into. I don't know if it's true or not. I just know that their policies are garbage. So whatever they're trying to do,
garbage, and
it's all about control, and it's all about taxing us more,
Right.
and just I don't know. It's just what their solutions are not worth a fuck.
Exactly. So I've come to realize what it is the means that they suggest are necessary for the ends they tell us are what they're aiming at are really the means are the ends. Yeah. If they say they want to lock you down for climate change, the point is the real aim is just to lock you down.
Yeah.
They want to get rid of mobility with automobiles. That's the real aim, is to get rid of your mobility. They want to push everybody onto the EV grid, which they can shut down at any time and even block access to your vehicle.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's true.
What are your thoughts on I guess the libertarian unions in the private sector?
Unions?
Yeah.
Well, I have my own take on unions. I mean, some libertarians say unions are fine because it's a willful, voluntary collective of individuals, but it isn't really the willful collective voluntarism of individuals. It's a racket. It's a monopoly racket over labor, and monopolies are always formed by collusion with the state. So while workers could collectively decide to walk off the job, they're not really they're being controlled by their union bosses, not by their own self-will. And it also drives up the cost of labor. It monopolizes labor. It makes it impossible for people to enter into certain labor pools because there is the requirement that you take a union job. I'm all for scabs. Scabs away.
All right. Well,
Union of Scabs.
Scabs. Hey, let me ask you something. So, is there anything that we as libertarians can do to try to get control of what's going on in higher education? Is the only way to
first of all,
just become a professor and start preaching libertarianism?
That's a part of it, certainly, but they're not going to let you in.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. I was on hiring committees, and I can tell you they won't let you in. There's a litmus test. You have to be some kind of leftist or other, and they have ways of telling that. First of all, also you're a white male. You might as well just go on the bread line right now.
I should just kill myself right now, according to them.
I think that's what they want us to do. I'm serious. I do think they want us to do that.
Yeah.
But the main thing that has to happen is defunding it. The federal government has destroyed higher education by funding it.
Yeah.
And that is why you have all these leftists in there, because they're state agents, and leftism is statism. All leftism is statism. And all of these people are, propounding all these socialist ideas because they love the state, and socialism is nothing but ultimate statism. So they're state agents. So first thing, cut the federal loans and grants and all that to these universities.
Yep.
And that drives up the cost of tuition, of course, but it also leads to the kind of homogeneity that you have in the universities with these leftists all over the place. And then you need to wage a cultural battle. There's no question about it.
yeah, that's kind of scary because I mean, it looks like from what you said earlier, it was about 100 years for them to start getting this to become to the point we are right now in university. Would you say that? You said starting in the 20s, about 100 years.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, they've been
Not a
working a
little
long
earlier.
time.
Yeah. So
I mean, that was one of the things that Saul Alinsky back in the 60s was preaching, that to basically infiltrate every organization and with leftists and take over the higher education, take over the corporations, take over everything.
Yeah. So it's just scary.
The originator of all this kind of stuff was named Antonio Gramsci, and he was an Italian socialist who realized that they weren't going to just have a workers' revolution until they changed the consciousness of people. So he said, we first have to take over the institutions, the cultural institutions, educational institutions, in order to get all this to take place.
Yeah.
Makes
sense, because that's where a lot of the thinkers, that's where thinkers come from, is from the university. That's where the leaders come from.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Rothbard called them court intellectuals.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right.
And Hans Hermann Hoppe called them the intellectual bodyguards of the state.
Yep. Yeah, they run interference for it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's just kind of scary to think if it's 100 years to get to the point we are now. How do we? I mean, I've heard so many people say, "Hey, you shouldn't be sending your kids. Don't be teaching don't tell your kids to go to college." And I have a 17-year-old son and a 16-year-old son, and that's I myself didn't go to college, but that's what I always wanted for him. I always thought, go to college and get a good job and get a good degree and get a good job. And so that's a hard thing to tell people. Not a hard thing to tell people, but a hard thing to act on.
Yeah, there are some exceptions now. We need doctors. We need engineers.
Yeah.
We need physicists. We need the hard sciences. The society's infrastructure will not last without these types of fields. So people need to do that. My son's a pre-med student at the University of Pittsburgh, and you should see the garbage that he comes home with his required humanities courses.
I don't imagine.
Where they give him almost all this shit from the woke factory,
Yeah.
and it's just ridiculous. And what we do one time, we said, let's write a parody. Let's go so over the top with wokeness it'll sound out of this world and totally insane. So we started saying, like, people that hurt other people's feelings when they talk in school should be thrown in jail.
What's like those guys? Who were those guys that did those studies, those fake studies?
I don't know, but that did the dog rape culture.
That was Peter Boghossian.
Yeah, the
Peter
dog
Boghossian
rape one,
Yeah.
These people are lunatics.
Yeah. And
What?
Helen Pluckrose, and there was one other, I can't remember his name. But yeah, they did that, yeah. They wrote these essays that were outrageous and sent them to these feminist and other journals and said the most ridiculous shit. And they got published.
Yeah, they ate it up. They loved it. They loved that stuff.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice? For someone like me, I've got a son that's a junior in high school and that's looking into different career paths, and with the school being or with the university being the way it is, what do you think? What would you be telling? I guess a broad amount of parents or broad scope of parents what they should be pushing their children towards.
Well, if it's humanities and social sciences you want to do, just avoid. Don't do it in the university. Do it on your own as an autodidact. Teach yourself.
Yeah.
Or go to some very, very few colleges that are worthwhile, like Hillsdale College, where I am a distinguished scholar. And they don't take any federal money at all for anything, including student aid.
Oh, wow.
And they have complete autonomy, and they're unwoke. There's not many others.
You said that's Hillsdale?
But that's one to consider.
Sorry.
Hillsdale College, yeah, in Michigan. And I say that as somebody. I was saying that before they brought me on, by the way. So it's not self-serving strictly.
All right.
But if it's the hard sciences, try to go to if you're going to hard sciences or engineering, pre-med, something like that. Try to avoid the hotbeds of wokeness, and try to go to places that don't offer much else.
Yeah, stay out of Berkeley
so that you're
and
not
Harvard.
forced. Yeah, certainly you don't want to go there. You don't want to be force-fed this woke crap on the in your what they call your electives, right? Where you have to do enough woke electives to get through. You know, I would try a polytechnic school for an engineer, or for pre-med, something like. Well, I would go to a. Stay out of the state schools. You got to try to stay private, because the state is more beholden to this crap than anywhere. Even in the middle of the country, even in the Midwest.
Yeah.
State schools are all contaminated by, don't forget the professors are coming from elsewhere. They're coming from the urban centers largely.
Oh.
And so they're ruined.
I
So
know I had searched the internet for the most conservative colleges in Texas, and the one that popped up, Angelo State down here, and I got on their Facebook and I started looking around, and they were at the top of the list, and their Facebook is pretty regularly woke crap. So I thought, man, that's something. If they're one of the most conservative ones, yet they're still pumping the propaganda out.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't. Sorry, go ahead.
You can't get away from it because all the professors and the administrators are coming from these woke hotbeds. So if you go to like a school, a top 25 university, like I did at Carnegie Mellon, you still have to you have to teach, and you're not likely to land a job in one of those top 25, at least at first. You're going to end up in Midwest or somewhere like that, in a small regional state college, and you're going to spread your gospel of garbage there. So it's, the options aren't really that great. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
It's the prospects are bad. Well, what I would recommend is a strong inoculation before you go, so that you don't get infected by this woke virus.
Yeah, I guess you could always try to stay in close contact with your kids and try to undo any garbage that they've been taught. But
Yeah.
it's a tall order.
Right.
Well, I know my son, even now in high school, has has arguments, I guess, or debates with teachers, even at the high school level. Because
Because they're coming out of these teacher colleges, which were all infested by Paulo Freire and what's his name? I can't think of it right now, but it doesn't matter. I would look it up and then I'd know. But yeah, they're all infested with this crap.
James Lindsay
this
wrote a good book on
pedagogy.
that, the Marxification of Education.
Yeah.
It breaks down the whole history of that Paulo Freire guy and how his ideology infested all these schools for teachers.
Oh yeah, absolutely it did.
Yeah.
I know for a fact I used to teach it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was never propagating or like a propagandist or doing any proselytizing in the classroom. I would present various perspectives on different things and let the students decide what they thought and make arguments from from their positions rather than force feeding various views on them. Always, no matter what my politics were, that was my pedagogy. And I got books to prove it. So,
yeah, I got a friend that when she went to college, she took a government class, and it was taught by a guy that was a avowed Marxist. Like, he was proud of being a Marxist, and he told everybody he was a Marxist.
yeah.
And she tried telling me, like, oh, he tries to give a fair and balanced lecture and whatnot. And then she dropped out and went to a different school and took another government class that was taught by a guy that was like a conservative, I guess. And she's like, man, that Marxist really taught us the wrong way. Like, everything he said is the complete opposite of what the government's supposed to do in the Constitution.
Yeah. If they're selecting all their texts to lead you in a certain direction, no matter what they say, they're propagandizing, they're proselytizing. I didn't do that, but I was a rare bird, believe me. You can tell by my professor ratings. They loved me because I didn't force feed anything on them. But what I was going to say, the situation is dire in the educational realm. That has to be decentralized too.
Yeah. Speaking of another situation that's dire, what I mean, man, the U.S. economy is so fucked. Basically, I mean, you just look at the debt and the $2 trillion. We're in $2 trillion deficits every year, and that dipshit that's in the White House is asking for another $100 billion for Ukraine and Israel, and you have all these big investors are now coming out going, "Hey, you guys need to do something about the debt. This is getting a little out of hand."
Yeah, they don't have the people to buy the debt, through the bonds. The bonds market is gonna collapse.
Yeah, they're actively. I was listening to a guy the other day. He was actively saying that there's the real fear that they'll go to sell bonds and nobody will buy them. And the Fed will have to step in and buy them.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, just under. The whole thing is fictitious in the first place. I don't know how much of the debt is owed to who. I think 20% is owed to the bondholders. That is the public. Yeah. So those people are holding a bunch of hot air, a lot of them. That's a catastrophe to be. This is why we have to get ready with decentralization, because we may have to do it just to survive.
For sure.
Because with money being worthless and with all the shit they're foisting on us, and the way they're going to oppress us more, the state that is, whenever the collapse nears or comes all together, people are going to be scrambling, man. Scrambling.
What are the chances, do you think, for a Libertarian RFK debate?
I would love it. I'm egging that on. The chances are slim because he's not going to do it. He won't entertain anybody what he would consider below his rating in terms of the polling and all that. He's not going to he's not going to debate anybody whose polling is much lower than his.
Yeah, you probably have to be higher than his for him to even consider it, really, just because he's got that RFK, that Kennedy name attached to it.
Right. And, his policies are terrible. There's a few things that he was good on, COVID and Ukraine war and all that, but that's it. Yeah. After that, he's gone completely berserk.
Yep.
He's talking about reparations now.
I saw that the other day.
And his stance on Israel, send them everything they need and fund them forever. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, he lost a lot of people that way. And in a national poll, without him as an independent, I was polling at 6%. With him, it goes down to 2%. So he's not going to debate us.
Yeah. We need him to get out then.
Yeah.
We need you to get that.
Well, he's also calling for government-backed mortgages at 3%.
Oh, this man, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Really?
Price controls.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Price controls, all kind of stuff. Terrible interventionist stuff that'll distort the market, actually drive up the cost of housing because it'll put artificial demand into the market. Yep. He doesn't know shit about economics.
No.
Short of pandering, the whole reparations thing, I just can't understand how any reasonable person at this day and age can think that could be done. How it would be done realistically. There's no way. So unless it's just short of pandering for a vote, I think
understand. That's all it really is, because reasonable people see that it's not I think reasonable people are going to go, well, I didn't enslave anybody. I didn't have anything to do with it. So why should I have to pay for something, give money to somebody that nothing ever happened to them? They weren't enslaved.
Well, they always throw in there like bias and systemic racism along with it. They like to package it with, discrimination that happened over years, I think discrimination is a right, actually.
Yeah, I do too.
If you want to, you should have a right to discriminate who you hire, who you sell or buy property from, whatever you want, all that.
Yeah, and you want that business owner to put that sign up so that everybody knows who the asshole in town is, so you don't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know there's a lot of talk on the doing away with the civil rights movement, going after that, so that for that exact reason. And then I've heard some on making a political ideology or whatever a protected class.
First of all, I want to say right now, there's 3 white guys talking about this, and we need to check our privilege. Okay.
Okay, check. Let's go on.
Yeah, I don't think that's the best way, but if I don't think that's a good way at all to do that, make it another protected class. It just seems like something else for people to go after you. Although if one of the two I kind of feel like should be done. Either we do away with that, or we make it a protected class.
Make what a protected
Political,
class,
like
that is.
political affiliation, political speed. It doesn't really.
Oh, that's
No,
I don't think there should be any protected
I'm
class.
with
I
I'm
don't.
with you
No,
on
no,
that
no.
one.
I don't either. I was just saying, one, if you're not going to do away with that, you add this. I don't know. It's just something I've been
I
trying to work out in my mind. I've heard heard a handful of people talk about it. The preferred method would be, we do away with some of this stuff that limits that. But
We already have a protected political class, the Democrats, who can't go to prison no matter what they do.
Exactly.
it's true. Yeah,
Exactly.
Right.
yeah.
Drug deals and gun crimes and everything else, they go. As long as he's related to the president,
Yeah.
nothing happens.
Yeah, especially that. Yeah.
So
Or you could have what is illegal, illegal use of influence to get contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
yeah, it's full of corruption every which way. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What books or resources would you recommend to me personally? I feel, and I know this is said every time, feel like this is the time for the Libertarian Party to do something. This is the time you're going to. I know that feels like the last 3 elections have that's been said,
Yeah.
but it feels like even more so now, and maybe it'll feel like
Yeah.
more next time. But so with that being said, with the possibility of new people coming to the Libertarian Party and giving that a look, what are some books and resources that you would recommend?
Well, I would say, look at Man, Economy, and State
Yeah.
by Rothbard, Anatomy of the State by Rothbard.
That's a great
real,
one. That's the best primer
that's
for
a real
everybody.
bomb. And, Mises, Socialism by Mises. But to get a little more Democracy, The God That Failed by Hans Hermann Hoppe. I think that's a brilliant book. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yeah.
It's great. And then his essay, What Must Be Done, which is kind of a play on Lenin's What Is to Be Done, but it's good. I guess that's it right now that I can think of.
So you're a pretty accomplished author there as well. What books would you recommend?
Oh, yes, I forgot to
Yeah, let's
mention
let's
The
plug
Great
your book,
Reset
too.
and
Yeah,
the
what-
Struggle for Liberty.
What books would you?
Let me go get it. Hold on. This book right here, The Great
Great
Reset
Reset.
and the Struggle for Liberty, Unraveling the Global Agenda. That's a must-read.
I do need to read that one.
Yeah.
Is there an audio version of
that's-
that?
No,
okay.
because it's there's too many weird names in there.
Oh, okay.
Because we're tracking I tracked and traced all the globalist organizations and all their members and what they've been saying and trying to do for decades. And so yeah, there's no audio version. There is a Kindle version.
Okay.
But I don't think the audio version will go over. It's very hard for these readers to get the pronunciation of names down, and there's a lot of different names in there.
Yeah. So, and I mean, how many are you 12? Do you have 12 published books?
12 books. Yeah, I have 5 books written from a libertarian perspective, starting with Springtime for Snowflakes,
I like that. That's great.
Google Archipelago, Beyond Woke, Thought Criminal. That's the other 4. Thought Criminal is a novel
Okay.
that I wrote during the COVID crisis.
Cool.
Hey, I was listening to you give a speech. I don't remember where was that, but you were talking about the Google Archipelago and I guess
Yeah.
the digital takeover of the world or something. You want to just like a brief rundown through that?
Gulag and yeah, it's about the way that the what I call the Google Archipelago is kind of like a prison system, a gulag, a digital gulag. It does what the gulag system did in the Soviet Union minus corporal punishment and forced labor so far. and that is it stifles all dissent. It disappears dissidents. It has a panoptical quality. That is, it is a surveillance system that oversees the whole public and controls their behavior and speech and so forth. Yep. And it's just like the Soviet Union. It's leftist in orientation. It's a leftist totalitarianism. And Google is just an emblem of that, although they're probably one of the worst examples of this leftist totalitarianism.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they modify their search engine just to keep certain things from coming up.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, they bury, blacklist, downrank, exclude. You can't find what you want on there, especially if you're looking for dissident ideas.
Yeah, that's rough.
and oftentimes the truth.
Yeah, there's been times I've tried to look up a subject and I'll have to go 4, 5, 6, 10 pages deep before actually. But now that they don't even do that. Now I think they cut it off at like 5 or 6 different page searches,
right.
And then you can't even go any deeper than that.
I have started where if it's something I can't find, I'll go to Brave or I'll go to DuckDuckGo or something like that and try to dig into that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I use the Brave browser when I need something that they won't allow me to see.
Yeah.
They're controlling all information, and Google is. I mean, they're controlling what our version of reality could be. They're actually shaping reality for people by virtue of controlling the infosphere altogether.
Yeah, and they work hand in hand with
the
government as well. Like there was that, what was it? The CIA went to Facebook and YouTube and all these other, telling them, hey, be on the lookout.
Well, the CIA, through its funding arm, In-Q-Tel, actually gave the startup funding for both Facebook and Google.
Really?
Yeah.
They're a CIA apparatus from the start.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Isn't that great? It's just frightening, man, because like you look at all the stuff that's going on and these challenges. It's as a libertarian, it's like how do we defeat this monster that has taken over our country and over our world? I don't know how we wake enough people.
I have a 9-point plan in this book.
Do you?
There's a 9-point.
We're going to link to that. That book is on Amazon, I'm sure, right?
Yes, it is. But it's also I have it.
Yeah. We'll have to drop the link.
You can also buy it directly from me.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely we'll put your direct link in the comments. All the money. So yeah, good deal. Well,
all right. Well, I don't got anything else. We're coming up on an hour. We don't want to take up too much of your time. So, is there any websites or social media you want to plug real quick?
Yes. So for the campaign, it's rectheregime.com. That's REC theregime.com. One word. And then my personal business website is michaelrectenwald.com. Rectheregime.com. Go there to support this movement, not this campaign per se, but this movement for decentralized revolution. And then michaelrectenwald.com for everything Michael Rectenwald.
Okay, awesome.
Do you, one more thing before you go, do you have anything possibly in the Texas area coming up? Any tour, any?
Oh, yeah, I'll be coming down for Texas debate, I think, and then, of course, the convention.
Awesome.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, we're going to try and be at the convention, too.
So
have a little booth or something.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We know you're a busy man. Thank you for making time and getting on here with us, and hope everything goes well and everything's good.
Yep.
Thanks so much. You guys take care, too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Next time.
All right.